My name is Marlene. I'm 46 years old, and I used to feel wanted. Not just wanted in the way a man reaches for your waist in the kitchen or brushes your thigh in bed, but really seen. Desired. Like my laugh could anchor someone, or the freckle on my shoulder was enough to stop time. That used to be what Jason gave me. When we first met, I was a yoga instructor with a part-time gig at a wellness retreat. He was a physical therapist working with injured athletes, smart, grounded, calm. We bonded over anatomy and posture adjustments, but it quickly turned into shared smoothies, early morning sunrises, and sex that felt sacred. Now I kiss him goodnight and feel his lips land on mine like a routine check-in. We cuddle, sure, but it's like his body forgets how to listen to mine. Sometimes he squeezes me too tight, like I'm being held hostage by affection. Other nights, he falls asleep holding me like a pillow, not a person. I started noticing it during one of our home stretch sessions. He was helping me release my lower back after a long day. My shirt had slid up slightly. His hands grazed my hips, familiar, clinical, practiced. But then he lingered, and I wasn't sure if he was helping or taking. That moment felt like crossing a line neither of us saw coming. He entered me without a word, and I didn't stop him. I just lay there, confused by how right and wrong it felt at once. Afterward, I stared at the ceiling and thought, when did we stop asking each other what we needed? And that was the moment I realized something between us had quietly fractured. And I didn't know if it could be healed. Jason thinks love is muscle memory. He touches me like he's checking for tightness or strain, like I'm one of his clients. He presses his fingers into my lower back without asking, guides my limbs into deeper positions, adjusts my posture like I'm broken and only his hands can fix me. But I'm not asking to be fixed. I'm asking to be felt. Last week, after dinner, I told him I was tired. He followed me into the living room anyway and said, "Let me stretch you out. You always sleep better after." It should have been kind. Maybe it was. But the moment he cupped the back of my leg and eased me into a lunge on the rug, I felt myself retreat. I felt like a body he knew too well, so well he'd stopped treating it like mine. "Relax," he said gently, kneeling behind me. His fingers slid under my thigh to tilt my pelvis forward. I froze. He didn't notice. Or maybe he thought I was just resisting the stretch. "Breathe," he whispered, and kissed my shoulder. I didn't breathe. He leaned in closer, still holding my hips, and murmured, "You feel so good lately. I love when you let me take care of you." That was the thing, he thought he was loving me. And I didn't know how to say that what I needed wasn't pressure on my spine or kisses between my shoulder blades. I needed him to ask how I was. To listen without touching. But how do you say that without sounding cold? How do you explain that too much touch, without the warmth of emotional curiosity, just starts to feel like being used? So I stayed quiet. And that silence felt like its own kind of betrayal. I started dreading his hands. Not because they hurt me, Jason has never hurt me, but because they always meant more than I was ready to give. One morning, while brushing my teeth, he came up behind me and smacked my butt. A playful slap. He laughed. I flinched. Not outwardly. Just inside. Like my body braced for another expectation I hadn't agreed to. Later that night, he brought me a cup of peppermint tea while I was curled up on the couch watching some quiet documentary about lost cities. He set it down gently, then sat beside me, pulling my legs onto his lap. I looked at him. He smiled like he was trying. I kissed him. It was soft, quick. I meant for it to be tender. But he deepened it too quickly, slid his hand up my thigh with practiced ease, like he already knew where the kiss was headed. And I pulled back. I saw his confusion flicker across his face. "What's wrong?" he asked, forehead creased. I swallowed. Nothing. And it wasn't nothing. It was everything. It was the way my body was shutting down because my heart wasn't being spoken to. It was the way every kiss felt like a lead-in to something physical and never a destination in itself. It was the way I missed being touched like a whole person, not just a body that functioned well under pressure. I went upstairs alone that night. He didn't follow. Maybe he was tired of the rejection. Maybe he finally felt it, too, that invisible wall between us. But as I lay in bed with the light off, I whispered something I hadn't even admitted to myself. Why does everything have to turn into sex? We were out to dinner, our first date night in months. I wore a soft green dress I hadn't touched in a year. Jason complimented it the moment I stepped out of the... I'm not some sexy healer who exists just to be touched and admired. He leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly. I didn't say you were. No, you didn't. But you never ask me how I feel. You just touch me. All the time. Like your hands are the only way you know how to say anything. Jason's jaw clenched. So now it's wrong to touch my wife? I was already crying. Quietly, but it was there, the crack, the overflow. And for the first time, I didn't wipe the tears away. I didn't say that, I whispered. I want you to see me. Not stretch me. Not fix me. Just see me. The table was silent. He stared at me like I was a stranger. I think in that moment, I felt like one too. After dinner, we didn't talk. He drove in silence. No music. No small talk. I sat with my hands folded tightly in my lap, aching with guilt. Why did I wait so long to say that? Why did I let it get this far? And somewhere in my chest, shame bloomed, because the moment he slipped inside me that night during our stretch session, I hadn't said no. But I hadn't said yes, either. The days that followed felt like walking through fog. Jason didn't slam doors or raise his voice. He didn't accuse or sulk. He just stopped reaching for me. No back rubs. No offers to stretch. No shoulder kisses in the morning while I made coffee. At first, I thought I wanted that space. I thought if the touching stopped, maybe I'd feel safer in my own skin again. But it didn't feel like safety. And in that quiet, guilt gnawed at me. I walked into the garage one afternoon and found him sanding a broken piece of a picture frame. It was from our honeymoon in Mendocino, some cheesy photo booth snapshot, us with seaweed in our hair. He didn't look up. I didn't mean to make you feel like a job, he said, softly, like he'd rehearsed it. I stood frozen in the doorway. I know, I whispered. He didn't say anything else. That night, I curled into bed on my side, back turned to his empty half. I pressed my fingers into my chest, as if I could soothe the sore place beneath my ribs. I missed him. God, I missed him. But I also missed me. The woman who used to laugh during sex. Who used to stretch on her own. Who didn't need to feel rescued every time her body tensed. I kept thinking about that night, when he slipped inside me mid-stretch, mid-silence. How I'd let it happen because it was easier than speaking. How I felt afterward, like the earth had shifted a half-inch off center. And I wondered, if I try to fix this now, will it be for him? Or for me? The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with both hands wrapped around my mug. And for the first time in weeks, I asked myself a terrifying question. Do I stay? Or do I let go before we lose what little we have left? The answer didn't come in a lightning strike. It came slowly, like thawing. It started with me sitting beside him on the porch one evening. We weren't talking. Just watching the streetlights blink on, one by one. I handed him a glass of water and said, I don't know how to touch you without pretending anymore. Jason didn't look surprised. Just tired. He sipped the water, then nodded, almost to himself. I've been waiting for you to say something. Anything. His voice cracked on the word, waiting. We sat in that ache together. For once, there was no reaching. No fixing. Just the heavy weight of honesty between us. I felt like I had to give in, I said quietly, because I didn't know how else to connect with you. And that night, during the stretch, when you slipped inside me, I didn't stop you. But I didn't want it like that either. Not in that silence. Jason's jaw tightened. You didn't say anything. I know, I said, and it broke me a little. That's the part one hate most. He looked down at his hands. I thought I was doing what we've always done. What you needed. I didn't realize you felt so far away from me. I didn't realize it either, I admitted. Until it was too late. A long pause settled. Then he reached for my hand. Not to pull me in. Not to start anything. Just to hold. I don't want to lose you, he said. But I don't want you to keep disappearing just to stay here. I nodded, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. Later that night, he slept on the couch. Not out of punishment. Just space. I watched his chest rise and fall from the hallway, feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Clarity. Maybe we could rebuild. Or maybe we'd be better apart. But either way, we'd finally stopped pretending. And in a strange, quiet way, that felt like the most honest kind of intimacy we'd had in years. You always think the cracks will be loud. That when love starts to break, there will be yelling or slammed doors or someone packing a bag. But sometimes it's soft. Sometimes it's the sound of a body shifting just slightly away in bed. Or a touch that lingers a little too long without consent. That night, the night Jason slipped inside me, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't say no. And maybe that's what scared me the most. That I had become so quiet in my own life, I didn't even notice the moment I stopped participating. I used to think sex was the way back. That if we could just keep touching, keep feeling, keep pressing skin against skin, it would mean we were still alive together. But I've learned something since then. Desire without emotional presence is just friction. And being touched isn't the same as being loved. I don't blame him. Jason loved me the only way he knew how, through his hands, through service, through familiarity. But I needed something else. I needed him to sit with me in the uncomfortable parts. To ask me how I felt before reaching for how I tensed. To see me as more than his wife. To see me as me. We're still figuring things out. There are nights he sleeps on the couch, not in anger, but because he wants me to have space. And sometimes I crawl in beside him anyway, just to feel the weight of his body near mine. But there's no pretending now. I don't stretch in silence anymore. I speak. I ask. I say when something doesn't feel right. And I've stopped giving myself away just to keep the peace. If I've learned anything, it's this. Silence can be the most dangerous kind of surrender. Not because it's loud, but because it's easy. Now, I choose discomfort over disappearance. Truth over tension. And if we ever touch again the way we used to, it will be because we both asked for it. And both said yes.